everybody. Hi, Francis.
Hello.
Hi, Mark. Hi, Ashley. Hi, Mayor. Hi, Dan.
Hey.
My video is still scrolling. It says it's waiting.
I had to run like crazy to get here on time. Hey, Dan.
Hey. Sometimes I'm sideways when I use Zoom, and sometimes
There we go.
doesn't. I think everybody else has to turn their screen sideways. Been doing a fair amount of hearings and work-related stuff on Zoom, and I find that when I'm at home, it's best when I'm not talking. I swipe over to the muted and video thing because I tend to get visitors in here. I disappear. I'm still listening. I'm there, but I probably will, go quiet so I'm not disrupting everybody else.
Looks like we're still waiting on Garrett and Troy.
Mm-hmm. So I updated, hold on.
So hopefully this is our last Zoom meeting.
That'd be nice.
I know.
Oh, well.
Hey, guys.
Hey, Garrett.
Hi, Dan.
Hey. greetings. I was telling everybody before you logged on that once we get underway, I'll probably swipe to the muted and no video part when I'm not participating, saying anything, because I get visitors in here from time to time.
Oh, I understand.
So we've been doing a good amount of these Zoom meetings for work, and I find that's the best way.
Mm-hmm. I always try to remember to mute my mic when I'm not talking, but then I forget to unmute it when I have something to say.
Yep. So I learned a thing at a mediation last night. If you're on a computer and you hit mute, you can press down on the bar and it will unmute you. And then when you let go of the space bar, the mute is back in effect.
Oh, nice.
Interesting.
On a radio, it's kind of like clicking on a radio.
Yeah, the walkie-talkie function.
Mm-hmm.
That's good.
Hey, good evening, everyone. How y'all doing tonight?
Good. How are you?
Awesome.
Hi, Brian.
All right, Councilman Milliken, how are you, sir?
So far, so good.
Good.
You got the back porch view there?
I do, yeah. Yeah, I got a puppy over there on the couch. I got my wife, McKinley, right next to me.
That's
Here,
right.
too.
I'm not working this evening, so I'm enjoying a glass of wine instead.
Some people have all the luck.
It is now 7 o'clock.
So we're just waiting on Troy, it looks like.
Is the mayor here?
I see him. He's talking, but he's muted.
Mayor, you're on mute still.
Okay.
I think it's time to call the meeting to order.
And I'm here, Troy Mullinax.
All right, so Francis, would you go ahead and call the roll of council?
Councilman Bowles,
Present.
Councilwoman Mignano,
Present.
Councilman Milliken,
Present.
Councilman Mullinax,
Present.
Mayor Woolsey.
Present. So I'm using the push the space bar approach, but that doesn't always work for me 100% of the time.
And then pour your sauce on top so that it doesn't make it.
The thing is,
The first item on the agenda is our public hearing for ordinance 2020-04. These are proposed amendments to the Town of James Island zoning and land use development regulations, ordinance 153-093, Folly Road Corridor Overlay District, adding hotels and motels as a prohibited use in all 5 areas of the Folly Road Overlay Corridor. So I'll hand it over to Ashley to see if we can get any comments from the public on that public hearing.
If y'all would like to comment, just stand right about there. Yes, and you can talk. We are unmuted. Just speak up so it's.
My name is Arlene Brown. I live in 1181 Bradford Avenue. I am not in any support of any hotels or motels on Folly Road. I feel like it's the wrong type of development for Folly Road, and I would like to encourage you an amendment to help stop this from any other development. Thank you.
Thank you.
Hi, my name is Hillary Smith. I live at 1155 Redwood Avenue, which is in a high flood zone for that area. I'm already having issues with the backside that faces Valley Road, City of Charleston property, where a guy built a building illegally. It's already causing increased flooding. And I think that putting hotels or motels anywhere along that side, in that area, I'm not sure about all the other areas, is just not what James Island needs. We already have a traffic problem. I grew up on Folly Beach. It took us all the years, oh, traffic will be great once the basis slows down. Well, the basis slows down, it grew up more apartments on the side, and we're having to deal with all the traffic. So I think you're just encouraging more problems that our infrastructure is not ready to handle. And I would appreciate if you would go to hotels, motels, maybe the 5 corners. Thank you.
Thank you.
Yeah, you can come forward a little, that's good. Here.
Okay. Good evening, Mayor and Town Council. My name is Joe Walters, James Island resident and property owner in the commercial core area of Folly Road. I'm here tonight representing the James Island business community. I've contacted each property owner in the commercial core area of Folly Road. Every property owner that I've communicated with wants hotels to remain in this community. Please have some discussion tonight and consider leaving hotels with a special exception as a permissible use in the commercial core area of Folly Road. Thank you.
Thank you.
Mayor Woolsey, so currently we do not have any attendees virtually. I believe, Ms. Simmons received a good deal of public comment ahead of the meeting. She can summarize that.
We received 35 emails. We received
Hello.
11 in favor of hotels and 24 in opposition to them.
I'm sorry, Francis, could you repeat that, please? I think someone else is trying to talk.
Okay. We received 35 emails. 11 were in favor of hotels and motels, and 24 were in opposition to having them.
Now, is that including all of the emails we've gotten since the first reading, or just for this meeting?
This meeting.
Thank you, ma'am. This is Councilwoman Mignano, by the way.
Yes, I guess members of council should try to remember, as Councilman Mignano did, to announce your name before you speak. That's one of our rules for virtual meetings. So there is no one else signed up. I see 2 phone numbers listed here, Ashley.
This is Sean James. I am now on. I had some technical difficulties earlier.
And let's make sure to mute Sean James.
Okay. The technical difficulty was that it's 6 o'clock where we're at in Florida and it's 7 o'clock there, and I forgot about the time change for a moment. So.
All right, well, thank you. So we're just starting the meeting. So next we have our public hearing for ordinance 2020-05, supplemental stormwater design standards. Do we have any comment on that matter?
It doesn't look like we do, but I do believe Ms. Simmons received 1 email.
That is correct.
No comment on that email. You forwarded it to the members of council.
This is Francis. Yes, I did.
This is Mayor Woolsey. Thank you. Okay, well, hearing no more comment on the public hearings, I call the public hearing closed. And so I don't see a general public comment item on the agenda, but I guess we have no public comments either. And so let's go to the consent agenda. That is the minutes from April 16th. Is there a motion in favor?
I make that motion, Councilwoman Mignano.
Is there a second?
Second.
Councilman, Mayor Woolsey asked if there's a second, and Councilman Milliken seconded it. Let's go ahead, and if there's any corrections or additions, please speak. Hearing none, with the town clerk, Ms. Simmons, please call the roll.
Councilman Bowles,
Yes.
Councilwoman Mignano,
Yes.
Councilman Milliken,
Yes.
Councilman Molinax,
Yes.
Mayor Woolsey.
Yes. Well, thank you. Now let's, we go next to our information reports, and we have our finance report first.
Hi, I'll be giving that report for Merrill tonight. Not too much to report on the revenue side. The franchise fee received was from Knology. Our legal services was the town attorney. That was for about 6 months. Let's see, we have the projects amount included street signs as well as fees paid to Weston and Sampson for the stormwater ordinance updates. The groundskeeping included about $3,900 to the town arborist monitoring Dominion. We were a little over. We've been spending some extra in janitorial for some additional COVID-19 cleaning of the offices. The Green Hill, Honey Hill drainage, that amount included 7 parcels of easement. The one Mitchell Law was handling because of no clear title. And then, let's see. I think that's about all I had to report.
All right, do we have any questions for the town administrator?
I'm sorry, this is Councilwoman Mignano. Give me just a second, please.
Yes.
I'm having trouble finding my town administrator report in here. Give me just a minute. Oh, here we go. Okay, I'm sorry. No, I don't have any questions. Councilwoman Mignano again. We can move on.
All right, thank you. Now we go to the town administrator's report, correct? Ashley?
Okay. Well, we of course continue to monitor the the COVID-19 pandemic and make adjustments as necessary. I sent you all the town hall's plan on returning to normal operations, including on Tuesday, allowing the public from 10 to 2. Our Pinckney Park Pavilion has been completed. Fortunately, no one's been able to use it yet, but we have pretty much closed out that project. There are 2 small little punch list items remaining on that. We've also met on site with the Tough Shed representative that's going to be doing the storage building out there as well. We received our encroachment permit for the Dills and Camp Road street lighting. We've also received permits for the Schooner, Clearview, Eastwood, and Stiles Drive traffic calming, and that has gone out for bid, and those bids are due back on Tuesday, June the 9th. So hopefully we'll be able to award that to the low bidder at July's meeting. Our business licenses were, we had 42 of those last month. Code enforcement cases, 11 new cases. Permits, building inspections permits, as well as zoning. We're all a little down last month, but still they're still coming in. So we haven't slowed down too much, and that's about all I have.
Any questions for the town administrator?
Yes, this is Councilman Milliken. I have a question about the undergrounding cost. I would like to learn more about what it costs to do that, as far as what some of the variables are, and if there are any estimates on that for the section of Folly and the Dills Bluff camp area.
Yes, so still kind of working through those hard estimates. There are a lot of variables on Folly Road in particular. As we're working through the phase 1, Revere Group that's handling that with Charleston County, they are looking at the cost of undergrounding and what the town could potentially contribute to that. Lots of variables. I mean, there's a stretch, for example, near Carlisle Road, for example, that if we did undergrounding right there, not only would we have to do undergrounding on Folly Road, but it would mean undergrounding the entire street of Carlisle Road and all of those homes, and bringing all of those homes up electrical wise, so they're able to accept the underground power. So it varies significantly depending on where the lines are. We've also been, trying to get some good numbers and estimates from them on this area, Fort Johnson Road being a scenic byway. So I did include in my report that, what we have available in our non-standard service fund balance, which is about $328,000. And then we would have to match that with $328,000. So the, a total project cost we currently have available is about $650,000.
Okay, thank you.
You're welcome.
So Ashley, do you recollect any rough estimates as to, I know it varies, but how much per mile or some kind of estimate along those lines?
I don't recollect.
Okay, so we'll look into that and report back on that later. Okay, any other? Hearing none, thank you, Ashley. And so let's go to the Public Works report. Mark.
Okay, here I am. All right, in April, there were 63 new requests for service due to the 6 inches of rain we had in 4 hours. 43 of those were in the town, 38 were drainage related, and the staff has responded to all those requests. Seaside Honey Hill drainage easement acquisition continues. Substantial completion was achieved for the picnic pavilion. Ocean View Stone Post drainage, Thomas and Hutton will be making a presentation, which they did at the May Drainage Committee to explain their findings and moving forward. Linwood Drainage Rehabilitation Project. Edie's completed the cleaning and camera work on the north outfall system and have submitted their findings, which are being reviewed by the county and the city and us. City of Charleston is still pursuing clearing the easement along Simpkins Creek behind Lansdowne so the ditch grading can continue in that direction. I do want to say that that was one of the better projects we've done lately. They uncovered 10 additional storm drain boxes that we did not even know existed in Linwood. Most of them were in people's backyards. There was at least 2 gardens on top of one of them. So yeah, that was extremely useful. Weston and Sampson completed their work on updates to the stormwater ordinance. Stormwater managers held their meeting by teleconference, and staff participated in RFQ evaluations for indefinite delivery contracts with stormwater engineering firms for Charleston County. Staff cleaned 3 signs in April, installed 8 new stop signs, and 17 new street name signs. Staff filled 3 potholes with 7 bags of material.
All right, any questions for the Public Works Director?
Yes, this is Councilwoman Mignano. Thank you for your report, Mark. I have some questions about some drainage issues that I had presented to you in February. And I know you sent the list back to me, and I see that some of these have been completed. I understand the delay with SCDOT. I'm very sorry to hear that their foreman passed away. But I have some questions about timeframes on a few of these other issues. For one, the house in Jamestown Estates where the fence is falling in because of the drainage ditch. Do we have any idea what kind of time frame we're working on this with this Yorktown Canal?
At this point, no, we do not have a time frame on that.
How do we get a time frame?
I wouldn't even begin to, I mean, except for asking Charleston County, you know, when it's going to be, you know, put on their schedule. That's about all we can do.
Could we do that? Could we
Well-
ask? I would love that because I know these people have been waiting for a long time. The other one that I had a question about was the 555 schooner. And I know Chris Wanamaker's trying to get a D number assigned for this ditch so they can finish the riprap.
Yes.
And I would like a time frame on that as well,
Okay.
to see how long he's going to take to get that, and then when we could get it done after that.
Okay.
Please and thank you. The other one is the clogged metal grate on Dills Bluff and Green Hill. I know SCDOT is aware of it, but it's been going on for a really long time.
Mhm.
So at what point what can we do to speed this along? This poor man has been complaining for, I understand, quite a long period of time.
Yes, and yeah, he's not the only one that's been complaining
Right.
about, it has been that way for several years, at least, that I know of. And we've been asking DOT to do something about that. And to this point, they have been responsive due to funding, is what I've always been told. I'm hoping that that will change now. But again, they have the work request in, and it's a matter of, can they actually do it?
Okay, so I feel that we should be a little more persistent on following through with that, because since it's been such a long time, they can't just keep waiting forever when it's impacting so much for them. Let's see what else. The 673 Middlewood flooding, all of the things that you said were uncovered in Linwood, is that going to help with this?
Middlewood is on the other side of the town. Middlewood's on Haywood Circle.
Okay, sorry. So with the headwater area for this system running into a pipe next to the house, so is that, how can we address that?
I really don't see any way that we can address it. That's the low point. That's where the water collects and it goes into that system, and that system functions fine. You just have to give it a little while for that volume of water to get in there.
Okay, I understand. Let me see, I'm almost done. I know I'm taking a long time. The Valley Forge ditch digging, the city is cleaning the roadside ditches in White House Plantation and aren't quite finished yet, but have they been back out there? Do we know?
No, they have not been back out there, at least in the last month, and that's due to the restrictions they've placed on their crews due to COVID-19.
Could we possibly could you and Ashley maybe send out a request on a time frame on when they're coming back out? I understand that it'll take more time because of this restriction with COVID-19, but I'm sure these residents would like to have like at least a time frame to look for.
Well, what I have been told, because I have asked when are they going to come back out there, it's going to be after the emergency has slacked off a little bit. So with what municipalities are doing, I expect it to be probably the first part of June.
Okay, thank you. Let's see. Let me see if I've got any more questions for you now that I've grilled you for such a long time. I think that's it. And I appreciate all of your help in this. And I know that I've blown up your email with all of these, and I know the residents really appreciate your help as well.
You're quite welcome.
Any further questions?
Yes, I don't, oh, okay.
Councilman Bowl.
This is Dan Bowles. I'm getting messages from folks who have tried to join the meeting, and I just tried on my computer. I'm here. They're telling me that the link that we distributed isn't working, and I just tried to do it on the info@jamesillandsc.us email that went out didn't work either for me to try to join on computers. I'm getting messages. There's folks who wanted to participate. Is it possible? Can we hit the pause button for a second and see if we can figure out how to let them in?
Yes, I know. I've been trying, if you can hear me typing, I've been trying to figure this out since before the meeting started. I've had several people contact me as well. For some reason, I'm not sure why they're unable to get on. Right before the meeting started, I sent out another town email, updated the website, and on Facebook, the web ID, hopefully they can access the meeting that way. They're still saying they're unable to, and it's expired.
It's
It hasn't
asking.
expired. Right, and we have a password and web ID with that, which I've shared with everyone. So I don't know what's going on. I apologize. We didn't have this issue last month. I don't know what to say.
If it does, so the email I got at 6:05 just has web ID and no password on the email from the town. If somehow sorted out, does anybody mind if we did public hearing again to let these folks speak if they want to speak?
I think really we have no choice but to do the public hearing again in June. Really, so, but I think we can continue with the meeting. We have public access through the YouTube channel, I hope, that people can see that. But we were not successful in allowing people to provide comment in the public hearing, you know, and I think even letting them come in later won't solve the problem. We just have to run the public hearing again and provide proper notice, and hopefully this next time we will have the public hearing in person. And I'm not sure that we're any closer to solving the technical difficulties.
This is Councilwoman Mignano. I have a question. Is there any other way that the public can chime in, either via emailing like Ashley or Francis during this meeting?
Bowles, I mean, if anybody's watching right now having a hard time and they want to come talk, I know that the town hall is open for those other folks who showed up. This whole Zoom thing I know is really new for everybody, but my whole point of asking that was if it did get resolved by the end of the meeting, it would be nice to let them talk. If it doesn't get resolved, I mean, we did let folks come into the town hall and speak if they wanted to. We got a lot of emails. I don't think that rerunning the hearing is the solution. I just was hoping to let, people who couldn't get on there in time be heard at the end.
And
we'll discuss this with our attorney and whether we need to do this again. I think the problem is that we told people that they could provide input in the public hearings, in both of these public hearings at, through Zoom, through this process, and it was not successful. And they, and if they had known they had to come to town hall to provide it, then, that would have been fine, but they had this option that has not been successful. Anyway, but I'll ask that we can talk to the town attorney whether we have to run another hearing and another reading, really. Anyway, I think we should move forward.
Mayor,
if I can make a comment on this, I think it would be worthwhile having a public comment perhaps scheduled for 8:30. We could reload a new Zoom and perhaps get the word out to people, because I think a lot of people knew about the notice of this meeting and were hoping to comment and probably still have a comment inside. Also, let them know that they can come to town hall and make the comment as it was earlier in council chambers.
Well, I think what we need to do right now is continue forward with the agenda.
I've got one more thing to say to Mark, though, if I may.
Okay, yes,
Yeah,
back on the,
Public Works. I just wanted to thank Mark and Douglas for their quick attention to replacing a vandalized stop sign at the corner of Fort Sumter and Montgomery. I called in and Douglas was there 20 minutes later putting a new sign on. So that was pretty impressive. So good job, Public Works.
Thank you. Douglas is here and he heard that, so you're welcome.
Mayor Woolsey,
yes,
sorry to interrupt. One of the gentlemen has showed up as an attendee. His name is Mr. John Litton. He was having issues earlier getting logged in and was wishing to speak. But I do have him up here now as an attendee. It looks like he was able to get logged in for whenever, whatever you all decide.
well, if there's no objection, and we have someone here willing, ready to speak, is there any objection to having him give a comment? Or did he say what he wanted to comment on?
No, sir. Well, I haven't talked to him yet. Oh, through the emails. I'm sorry. Yes. He is the attorney representing the Bessinger family.
Is there any objection to letting him speak?
This is
All right.
Councilwoman Mignano. I have no objection.
Okay, so if there's no objection,
This
then-
is Councilman Milliken. I have no objections as long as anybody is able to speak as they wish to during this meeting.
well, then I guess that counts as an objection.
Mhm.
So let's continue on with the agenda. The next item on the agenda is the Island Sheriff's Patrol report.
Hey, this is Sean James. I've got a few things to go over. First and foremost, we had a parade the other day for the seniors of James Island High School for the class of 2020. And we ended up utilizing 11 personnel, counting myself, and it went off perfectly, in my opinion. We had a couple kids that, when you're talking about that many, that were sitting on the windows, and I had to make them sit down and, coming out of sunroofs. But seriously, it was very well taken in by the town of James Island. There was probably, and I rode the whole circle, probably 500 people that were outside in different locations, and it was just amazing for them. So I think that was a really proud moment for them. I'm glad the town of James Island stepped up to be able to help them out. All right, moving on from that. In the month of April, obviously it was a quiet month with COVID-19. We had directives from our chief deputies and sheriff all the way down that we were not stopping cars unless it was something significant like reckless or DUI or something like that. So we were out there patrolling the neighborhoods, trying to keep people safe, and basically they didn't want us harassing anybody. That has now gone away, and now we're back to going out there and policing the area and working on speeding complaints and things of that nature. And then in the month of April, we only stopped 26 cars, but we worked 656 hours. We wrote 11 tickets, 13 warnings, went on 115 calls for service, 12 field interviews, and 3 arrests. We had 1 gram of marijuana by Jeff Phillips. We had 22 grams of marijuana by Jeff Phillips and 1 gram of heroin from Deputy Willis. Now moving on to what our biggest concern is, we really haven't had any car break-ins. The kids were doing really good out of school as far as that went, considering they've been out since March 18th, and we didn't have any burglaries, but we are having some shootings. And so there's a subject that he is being shot at. Supposedly the rumor is on the street it's over a girl. It ended up going to a gas station. They got into a fight since then. One of the guys' car's been shot up once. They shot at him on Witter. Well, they thought they were shooting at him on Witter Street last weekend. Well, they weren't. The wrong car. Luckily, it didn't hit anybody when they shot. They shot up his mom's house last week, and he was outside supposedly shooting back. This morning, we're not sure how this morning's is tied in, but there is a big major player that is about to go away for a long time, and we just have to find him. and we should have him locked up here in the next 2 days. Whether or not he's a player in that shooting, we're hearing that he was this morning. That's all I can tell you, but there's a major player that's going to prison. He's going to be gone. You won't see him probably the rest of our careers. That doesn't solve the other issue that we're having with the shooting, because we're hearing it's between one family and another family, and some of it is on Grimble Road. Some of it actually spawned over to City of Charleston, had a shooting over in the Walmart parking lot about 3 or 4 weeks ago. So these guys are continuing to shoot each other and shoot at each other, and I don't know when it's going to stop. And unfortunately, we're worried that it's not going to stop until someone gets hit or killed. So we're doing everything that we can as far as detectives being involved, as far as K-9 being involved. Last night we had 3 James Island deputies that were working, that were on the scene this morning at 1:30. Within minutes, they were there. One guy got hit in the butt. They fired 20 rounds in their car with a 7.62 rifle through the windshield, missed the 2 front people, hit the guy in the back who kind of leaned over and hit him in the butt. Supposedly that may have been the wrong car. So again, how do you prevent it? We stay in the area, we stay vigilant, we pay attention to what's going on, and we hope that somebody talks. To stop it is near impossible. We know that. So we're doing the best that we can, and we have a lot of resources that are pulled for this. And the town of James Island, we got enough resources that we're doing exactly what we need to do out there. So, anybody have anything?
Are there any questions for Sergeant James?
Yes, Sergeant James. Is the Sheriff's Department going to be, if we reopen our parks, are you guys going to be able to monitor for overcrowding in any of our park facilities?
Yeah, I mean, absolutely. We'll look at more of 10 or more people together. I mean, because you got to remember the 3 or more now is kind of suggestive. So we have to be very careful and walk a thin line with that. And so we're very careful. We're not doing a lot of enforcement on it, but we are advising people. So we haven't, that I know of, written a single ticket for that whatsoever. Because we had to be careful with civil rights and civil rights violations versus the governor's orders and what he's actually asking you to do.
All right, very good. Thank you.
But absolutely, we will go by there. And if there's 15 people there having a cookout, absolutely, our deputies are instructed to go, hey, y'all can't all be crowded up together like this. Let's separate. 99.9% of people are like, hey, no problem whatsoever. And I think they're loosening the restrictions up as we speak, every day. It seems like something new's coming out to loosen them up a little bit.
All right, thank you.
Any further questions?
Sir. Anybody see the parade?
Hearing none, thank you. Next, we'll move to.
Maggie, y'all have a nice night. Thanks.
Thank you, Sergeant James. You have a nice night too.
Thank you. Good night.
Thank you.
So next we'll go to request for approval. The first request for approval is a drainage check valve on James Island Creek Basin. Ashley, would you speak to that?
Yes, Mark has been working very hard, in part trying to find some solutions to the Linwood neighborhood and flooding issues there. So the town is looking to partner with the city of Charleston to install a check valve at South Anderson. This is a sub-basin to the larger James Island Creek Basin. But this device is needed because when water backs up at high tide, it backs up behind Fort Johnson Baptist Church, and then it prevents the drainage from leaving Linwood. So we've looked at a percentage of area that this sub-basin drains. We do have the largest percentage, around 81%, and then the city at 18%. So we've broken up the cost accordingly. So the town would be paying about $22,000 for this check valve to B&C Land Development. City of Charleston received 3 quotes and will be managing this installation and contract.
Is there a motion in favor?
So moved.
So that was Councilman
Councilman
Milliken.
Milliken, sorry.
Is there a second?
I second. This is Councilwoman Mignano.
Any discussions or further questions?
I have a question. This is Bowles. And this is for Mark, if he's still here. I think I heard Ashley say that it was Mark's opinion that this would alleviate the tidal flooding for the neighborhood. Understand correctly?
Yes, Councilman Bowles. What it'll do is the tidal flood, when we have a high tide, even an extremely high tide, it'll get back to the Kentwood Road area. But normally it just floods the pipes all the way to the back of Fort Johnson Baptist Church. But if we have a rain and a high tide, then all that water that's generated in Linwood stays in Linwood. This will give it more room to go and get more of that water out of there. So yes.
And a check valve is like a one-way flow device.
Absolutely.
All right, thanks.
I think the primary benefit is to actually prevent mud, pluff mud, marsh mud from moving into the pipes and clogging them. Is there any further discussion? Hearing none, could we please call the roll?
Councilman Bowles,
Yes, ma'am.
Councilwoman Mignano,
Yes.
Councilman Milliken,
Yes.
Councilman Mullinex,
Yes.
Mayor Woolsey.
Yes. Okay, so that passes. Let's go on to the next request for approval. This is the Highland Avenue drainage easement and improvements. Would you explain that, Ashley, please?
Yeah, so the summer of last year, council moved forward with doing a drainage analysis of this area to help alleviate some of the flooding. And I included in the packet the recommendations from Stantec. They had two actual conceptual designs, and the latter, the one that the construction would cost about $130,000, was the one ultimately that they thought would have the best impact to, or the best solution to alleviate the flooding. But this approval is to move forward with the drainage easements that the right-of-way acquisition would need. In total, the project would cost around $160,000. Now, a lot of that is construction costs that we will be hopefully, and a little while later on in the meeting, looking at doing a CTC application for to help share in some of that cost.
Is there a motion in favor? So I'll make a motion in favor. Is there a second?
Councilman Mullinex, I second it.
Any further discussion or question?
Yes, this is Councilwoman Mignano. I have a question. I saw that there are two separate quotes for this. And I wanted to know what the pros and cons of each option are.
So those are the two, I guess, separate designs that Stantec presented in their report. And, we've met them on site and kind of looked at both options. The option that we're not recommending is the one that actually takes the water a little further past one of the properties and pipes it in a bit more. The reason it saves a little cost, I think it was around $7,000, was because you wouldn't have to actually move two fences and reconstruct them. But where the water is actually wanting to go is that shorter path to the marsh there, which is the second recommendation at $130,000.
Okay, I'm sorry. I thought the first recommendation was the 130,000. The option one was the 130. Councilwoman Mignano, by the way.
There's two, 130, and then the other one I think was 123.
right?
And the 130 was in the packet and their recommendation. I'm not sure how it came. It might have been first. I'm not sure, but it's not what they're actually, after talking with Justin, our engineer on site, and discussing it, it's not the one that he thought would be the best solution. He was
So
just
moving-
giving us 2 options.
I'm so sorry. So moving the one that where you have to move the shed, that's not your favorite option.
The shed.
Where you have to adjust the shed? Am I not talking about the same thing?
There's 2 fences.
We're talking about the thing for Highland Avenue drainage assessment, right? From Stan Tech.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. So one says, one option shows reconstructing of wooden fences, and another one shows and that one says adjusting the shed at 1536.
Yeah, if you give me just a second, I'm pulling that report back up.
Yes, it's on the picture. It's got a picture of the shed with the 2 estimates on the July 29th letter.
Mm-hmm.
And it says will require adjusting the shed.
Yes, that's right. And that's the $130,000. And that's the one they're recommending. That's the one. There's also, it mentions it a little bit. It says this will require reconstructing the wooden fences along the boundaries and adjusting the shed. The second option that was at 123 just takes the water a bit further past that property.
And this is Councilwoman Mignano again. So the second the less expensive option is not ideal because it takes it past where the water wants to go naturally, correct?
Correct.
Okay. I have three other questions. One is, what is the difference in the mobilization fee between these two? Do you have that? One's 15,000 and one's 20,000.
I'm not sure.
Okay.
Will the town be responsible for doing the cleanouts on the boxes? And is there a difference between the plans with respect to the number of boxes? Because I couldn't tell by looking at that.
Because there's more pipe in the second option, there is probably another box. But I'm not too sure of that. So this is actually in DOT right of way. And, as far as who's going to be responsible for maintaining it, it certainly would ultimately fall to them. And hopefully, we can, and I had mentioned it a little later on in the CTC request, that we could hopefully get some funds from DOT and maybe even the city of Charleston to help with this project.
Mm-hmm.
I believe that the area, what drains is the DOT drainage on the road, but then, and some of this will be on the DOT right of way, but I think the remainder, where these fences have to be moved and where the shed is and all that, that would be in a right of way that the town would be purchasing, right? And so we would be responsible for maintaining that. Look, to me, it looks like it's 3 drop box for either option. Yeah, further questions or discussion? Hearing none, let's vote. Francis, please call the roll.
Councilman Bowles?
Yes.
Councilwoman Mignano?
Yes.
Councilman Milliken?
Yes.
Councilman Mullinax?
Yes.
Mayor Woolsey,
Yes, and so that passes. So now let's go to the FEMA Hazard Mitigation Grant Property Acquisition. Ashley, would you speak to that?
Yes. Sorry, forgive me. Just a second. So this would be approving, the town was awarded a FEMA grant, a hazard mitigation grant to remove a repeated flood structure in the town's limits. So we are designated as the subrecipient. Our non-federal match would be $140,960. 75% of the cost would be paid by FEMA, and it would include demolishing the home as well as turning the just some regrading and minor landscape to turn the parcel back into natural green space where it would be protected forever and stay a floodplain.
All right, is there a motion in favor?
So moved.
Is there a second?
I second.
Troy Mullinax.
We'll take Troy as seconding it, but thank you though, Councilwoman Nano.
You're
All
welcome.
right, any further discussion or question?
Yeah, I have a question. Can this location be helpful with some of our flood management in that area? In other words, can it be part of some other bigger plan for controlling drainage? If it's an area that floods often?
Maybe Mark might be the best to answer that question. I do know that just having, it's not a huge parcel, but any added protected property we have helps with the town's reduction rates that homeowners receive in their flood insurance premiums. Mark, did you have any comments on that as far as further flood management in that area?
Yeah, just to be clear, this is the house on North Stiles, right?
Yes.
Yes. Okay. There really aren't any other problems there flood wise. It's part of that lake, Crane Lake that's there that we've had trouble with over the years, fixing the weir and whatnot. So part of a larger project for the area, I don't see it, but it's going to keep that the floodwaters that do accumulate in the pond, it gives them more of a place to go.
All right, thank you.
Any further questions?
I do. This is Bowles. I think I actually might have touched on this, but my question is this: the total non-federal share of $140,960 is paid by the town.
Yes. Yes, that's correct.
And the demolition is going to be carried out also by town staff?
Yeah, so we would be, and it's a reimbursable process. So we have to, there's a lot of, a little bit of red tape we'll have to go through. We have to follow not only our procurement policy, but then FEMA's as well. But yes, the town would be managing the project as far as demolishing the house and then returning it back to the green space. Yes.
And follow-up question is just that is staff comfortable that this is the best, this is the lowest price rather that we could accomplish all this for?
We could certainly, it could be accomplished for less. So these are all estimates. So, as far as the fair market value of the home, I don't think that's going to change, but what could change is how much it's going to cost to actually demolish the house. And then, the regrading and all of that. So these were all estimates that we had. We actually did get it from an engineer that was trying to get some numbers from a similar project. So if it comes out less, then we would be responsible for less. So the project could come out to be less, I guess, is the answer to that question.
Okay. Thank you.
You're welcome.
Any further questions or discussion? Hearing none, let's go ahead and vote. And the town clerk, please call the roll.
Councilman Bowles,
Yes.
Councilwoman Mignano,
Yes.
Councilman Milliken,
Yes.
Councilman Mullinax,
Yes.
Mayor Woolsey.
Yes. So that passes. The next item is groundskeeping for Brantley Park. You speak to that, Ashley?
Did
I don't think that's next. Are you?
asset management?
Yes, I apologize. Asset management plan, scope and fees.
Yes. This is something that Mark and I and staff, we've been talking about for a while now, and something we're really excited about, and I think is a very critical next step in managing our drainage assets. But I also, just real quick on the call, we do have Brian and Rick with Thomas and Hutton available to answer the questions that me and Mark can't. But really, it's fleshing out our inventory, filling in the gaps, really creating a work order system, and building that maintenance schedule, just so we can be more proactive as opposed to reactive. I think one of the situations that we had recently in Linwood was a perfect example. When we're doing work, 3 boxes were discovered that were on no one's plans. And so really knowing what we have is such a critical step in, that roadmap and how we're going to, do these improvements and how we're going to pay for them. But again, Mark and representatives from Thomas and Hutton are available to answer any questions.
All right, is there a motion in favor?
So moved.
Councilman Milliken moves in favor. Is there a second? Well, I'll second that.
Oh, okay.
Any further discussion or question?
This is Councilwoman Mignano. I have a question. I have a couple questions about this. So the stormwater inventory and all of this geothink mapping and all of this, is this going to, so this will give us a better idea of where we should be draining water, or so that we can make proper plans? Because I know there are some places where there have been some discussion about, should there be a ditch, should there not be a ditch? Is this project going to help us manage that better?
Brian,
Mark, do you want to?
well, I can speak to that. Eventually, yes. The first phase of this is really to identify and locate the pieces that we have. And then once we have that, we can better develop our maintenance plans going forward and long-range capital improvement plans, which will include things like you're talking about. Do we need a ditch here, or do we need a pipe there, or things like that? It will help us tremendously in planning for replacement of structures, which currently is done on an emergency basis. And we're trying to follow the lead of the rest of the country by being more proactive instead of reactive, not waiting until it breaks, but planning ahead, excuse me, planning ahead so we have the budget and we can replace it when it needs to be replaced. Ryan, you have anything to add?
No, as far as the future planning goes, I think that you knocked that out pretty well. And I'd say that's more of Rick's expertise as well. So I think I'd punt to Rick if he wants to say anything about that.
Yeah, Brian, this is Rick, and council members, thanks for entertaining this this proposal. Yeah, this would give you guys a really good roadmap to know where everything is. And one of the things that we really thought was a critical piece of it was being able to identify the ownerships of the assets in your jurisdiction. Town, county, DOT, private are the main ones, and then be able to quickly figure out who owns it and who's responsible for making sure it's operating if when you come upon it. So that does give a good amount of this will get you there, and then we'll be able to update it as we move forward, and then it'll evolve into your kind of like your work order system as you move forward.
So Councilman Magnano, if I understood your question properly, it sounded like you were asking whether this is a drainage study. What you asked, would it help decide where we need pipes and where we need ditches and so on? That's what a drainage study will do. And we hope to be working forward to having a drainage study done for the James Island Creek Basin. That's one of our goals. This project is more involved with keeping track of our existing infrastructure, keeping records, careful records of when it's been maintained. And this would be routine maintenance, like when were ditches dug out, when were ditches cleared, when were pipes blown out. And then the pipes themselves, how old are they and how long are they likely to last, and what plans we need to replace it. So a galvanized pipe that's been in existence, that was put in 50 years ago, we need to be thinking about, that needs to be slip lined or replaced. And we'll be keeping these records in a map system so that we'll be able to see where they are and look at those spots on the map and when they were last cleared, how old they are. And this will help in our planning for maintaining the whole infrastructure system. And that's not quite the same thing as drainage studies, which we are working to complete in the various basins, starting with James Island Creek.
Oh, this is Councilwoman Mignano. Thank you for that clarification. So this is an assessment of what we have and where they are and how old they are and any maintenance records that we have.
That's essentially correct, yes.
Okay, thank you.
Any further questions or discussion?
I have a question. This is Bowles probably for Brian. How will we know that this is working?
Well, the town is actually already currently using Geothink. And essentially what we do is we compile a large GIS, giving the town access to things like parcel data, property ownership, wetlands, flood zones, topography, stuff like that. And what we'll be doing now is building in the stormwater component to their Geothink, to the town's Geothink, giving you the ability to drop work orders, record maintenance. As Douglas and Mark are out in the field, they'll have access to all of this information as well. So it should really boost everyone's efficiency working as well too.
And I will, Councilman Bowles, I will say that we can start seeing if it works or not immediately. Once Brian gets it set up and we're out in the field testing it, and I imagine that there's going to be some tweaking that we need to do along the way to get it exactly where we want it. But as Brian was saying, yeah, almost immediately we're going to be able to see that this is useful because we're already using Geothink.
So I think this is Mayor Woolsey, Councilman Bowles, especially from a council person's perspective, when we have our drainings meeting and the maps on the screen and we're talking about a basin or a pipe, we select it, when we look at it, we will see more than what we can see today, which is some basic information about or app size. It will also have records, how it estimated age, previous maintenance, and we'll have a picture of why action needs to be taken promptly. Any further discussion?
This is Councilwoman Mignano. I have one last question on this. So the flat fee, like the initial payment that we're going to be doing is listed on this first page of this proposal. And then after that, it's like a yearly fee divided up however which way, $25,000 a year. Is that correct?
Yes, ma'am.
Yes,
Yes.
and just to note that annual fee, we're currently paying $7,200 now for the annual fee. So that will go away. And I do show that reduction in our IT budget under admin services.
Thank you.
Any further questions? Hearing none, let's go ahead and vote. Town clerk, please.
Councilman Bowles,
Yes.
Councilwoman Mignano,
Yes.
Councilman Milliken,
Yes.
Councilman Mullinex,
Yes.
Mayor Woolsey.
Yes, and so that, okay, so I guess this time it is the next item, groundskeeping for, would you speak?
Yes, this is, I got an estimate from Natural Directions, one of our on-call groundskeeping firms. The estimate was $200 per visit. What I have recommended budgeting was bi-monthly during the growing season, and then once a month during the winter months.
Well, explain what are they going to do bi-monthly?
General mowing, underbrushing, picking up any, limbs and things like that.
Thank you. Is there a motion in favor?
That motion, Councilman Mullinex.
And so I'll second. Discussion. Any other questions or?
I do. This is Councilwoman Mignano. I looked at this and it looks like they're just doing basic mowing, weed eating. They're not going to be cutting any vines or branches. They're not going to do any underbrushing of woody debris. I feel that $200 per visit is really, really, really high. I took the liberty of talking to 2 other landscaping companies and they came in at less than half this cost. So I feel like this is really just way too high for an empty
Okay,
half-acre lot.
Any other discussion?
What would be the procedure if we were to if we were not to hire this particular firm? We bid it out again and then bring it back in the future? This is Councilman Milliken.
Well, that's possible, but so one of the reasons we do on call is we put out a call for all firms to do this sort of work for us. In order to do work for the town, there's requirements of drug testing and promises of no illegal aliens and just a lot of things that local governments require that not all landscaping firms necessarily are able to promise. But and there is an issue of getting when we have a on-call contract, say not using them and then bidding out every project that they've already bid for.
This is Councilwoman Mignano. I hear what you're saying, and I know that to have on-call contractors is very important. The two companies that I spoke with, they do not hire illegal aliens, and they do drug testing. As far as I know, they're reputable, and they've taken care of like they seem to be very reputable companies to me. But I really just think $200 is really high.
Okay, any,
Thank you. This is Bowles. The agreement that's presented is for a year. Can we, if we moved and it passed, can we do this for like a quarter and see how it works? And if Councilwoman Mignano finds something else in 3 months, but I mean, I do think it's important to get the space cleaned up, right? I mean, right now with all the rain and long sunshine hours, if no one's attending to it, I know it'll get overgrown, and then there's problems that come with that. I think it's important to go ahead and get it cleaned up, and then maybe we shop it after 3 months. Is that allowable if I made that motion?
so a motion to amend would, along those lines, would be in order. I want to ask the town administrator, does she think there would be any particular issue or any problem with
right? Would they be
for a quarter?
Right. Right.
I don't think so. You know, we just awarded these groundskeeping, I think in January or February. We haven't given Natural Directions any work yet. You know, I do think they, you know, I was also going to look to them in lieu of our other firm, Heart Pine, to give us an estimate when we have to maintain the Camp and Folly landscaping, just because they do have more of the traffic control that's going to be needed for that. And I also thought if they're, you know, having one firm do our work along Folly Road might be more cost efficient. But yes, I'm sorry, to answer your question, I do think they would probably be willing to do, you know, enter an agreement with us for less than what they presented.
All right, so I'll just make that we amend the contract to make the contract for 90 days.
I'll second that.
So Councilman Milliken seconded. So now we're discussing an amendment to have Natural Directions do work on Brantley Park for the next 3 months at $200 a month. Is that correct?
It's $200 per visit. So it depends on how much is going to be needed.
The next 3 months, it actually will be the high period. So, okay. Is there any further discussion, Councilman?
Yes, I'm so sorry, but so Ashley, is there any way that we can, I would be happy to present the 2 quotes that I had and present it, and maybe you could present it to Natural Directions and have them explain why they're more than twice the price of 2 other companies that were contacted? Or maybe they're willing to drop their price down to something that's more competitive with the industry.
Yes, I can certainly present that to them.
I can get those to you tomorrow.
Need to discuss the amendment, which is to go for the amendment is to make this agreement with Natural Directions for 3 months. Any further discussion of that amendment? And so, you know, with that, if that passes, we still have to make, you know, we haven't voted to do it for 3 months. We're changing it from 1 year to 3 months.
So I'm sorry, this is Councilwoman Mignano. So if we vote to do it for 3 months, then we're agreeing to pay them the $200 per visit for 3 months?
That is my motion. Yes, that's my motion. This is Bowles.
Thank you.
All right, so let's go ahead and vote on that amendment. So all in favor of the amendment to make this agreement for the agreement would be for 3 months. Councilman, excuse me, would the town clerk please call?
Councilman Bowles,
Yes.
Councilwoman Mignano,
No.
Councilman Milliken,
Yes.
Councilman Mullinex,
Yes.
Mayor Woolsey.
Yes, and so now we are continuing to discuss this, and we're now at a 3-month contract, and the pricing they gave us was $200 a visit, twice during the growing season, which actually I think for the next 3 months would be the growing season. Any further discussion of the main motion? Hearing none, then let's go ahead and vote. And so this would then approve using natural directions to take care of Brantley Park, landscaping at Brantley Park for the next 3 months. Would the town clerk call the roll?
Councilman Bowles,
Yes.
Councilwoman Mignano,
No.
Councilman Milliken,
Yes.
Councilman Mullinex,
Yes.
Mayor Woolsey.
Yes, and so that passed. So next, we have the postage meter lease renewal. Would you speak to that?
Yes, this is our postage meter we have here, and the lease is up. Merrill was able to negotiate a $20 a month savings over our new lease, as well as they're replacing the piece of equipment with a new one.
Is there a motion in favor?
Move.
So moved.
Is there a second?
Second.
Second.
It was, I think Councilman Bowles, and we'll credit Councilwoman Magnano as a second. Councilman Bowles moved. And any discussion? Hearing none, would the town clerk please call the roll, Fran?
Councilman Bowles,
Yes.
Councilwoman Mignano,
Yes.
Councilman Milliken,
Yes.
Councilman Mullinex,
Yes.
Mayor Woolsey.
So that passes. The next item on the agenda is janitorial service on Pinckney Park Pavilion. Would you like to speak to that?
Yeah, so Frances reached out to Zeb's. She has a very good relationship with them. They do the work here at Town Hall, which we had recently, before we moved in, had gotten quotes on that. But anyway, so this is for Pinckney Park. They would be doing the cleaning at $350 per month. This would be 3 visits. And I think we would, depending on how the shelter's used, sort of change when those days might be. I think right now it's maybe Wednesday, Friday, and Sunday. Anyway, I would be coming back to council. I'm currently working on sort of a rental policy to include some rental fees to help offset the cleaning fees that we'll have here.
Is there a motion in favor?
So moved.
Is there a second?
I'll second for discussion.
All right, so any discussion or further questions? I guess Councilman Milliken, we take that, you have some discussion.
Yeah, I'm curious about it. It seems what they're talking about here is floor care services, which I think that we probably need help with the trash removal and cleaning up the restrooms out there. But it says floor care. I'm not sure why that's in their contract proposal.
It is for trash and the bathrooms. This is under floor care services. It says not applicable. At least on the page 4 that I'm looking at.
Right, but it doesn't say what they're doing.
I know Mark and Mark, you and Douglas, I believe, met with him on site and kind of went over in detail what they would be doing. Can you address that?
Floor care is like what they do here with the vacuuming and mopping and that sort of thing. They wouldn't need to be doing that over there. What they're going to be doing is, like you mentioned, Ashley, the bathrooms, the toilets, the trash cans, and also the, what else we got there? Water fountain, that sort of thing. That's mainly what they would be doing, wiping down the surfaces, that sort of thing. There's going to be picnic tables there that don't need to be cleaned off. That's what they're going to be handling.
Very good. That sounds good, but it's not in the contract. That's why I'm asking the question. That's all.
There shouldn't be any need for any floor care. It's a concrete floor. I mean, if it needs any care, it will be something we get a contractor in there to seal it or something, but that would be 15, 20 years down the road.
Well, I would see actually sweeping and mopping as being something that needs to be done from time to time.
Possibly if we have a party there, but I think Ashley's going to address that with the rental.
This is Councilwoman Mignano. What about, they're just going to do the pavilion? They're not going to worry about any of the like playground equipment or anything like that?
Just the pavilion.
Thank you.
Any further discussion?
How often are they going to be there again, please?
3 days a week.
Okay, thank you.
Is there any further discussion? Hearing none, let's go ahead and vote. Would the town clerk please call?
Councilman Bowles,
Yes.
Councilwoman Mignano,
Yes.
Councilman Milliken,
Yes.
Councilman Mullinax,
Yes.
Mayor Woolsey.
Yeah. So that passes. Next, we have a $2,000 donation to Pellet Helpers. Ashley, would you like to speak?
Yes, they have sent us a request for funding to help assist with the certainly the lack of funding they've been getting lately due to the COVID-19 pandemic, as well as I think the large influx of cats and other pets that have been dropped off that they're experiencing. I know Councilman Mullinax has also had some discussions with them.
Is there a motion in favor?
This is Councilman Mullinax. I would like to make that motion.
Is there a second?
Second, Milliken.
Hearing none, would the town clerk please call the roll, Francis?
Councilman Bowles. I'm
Yes.
sorry, Councilman Bowles. Okay. Councilwoman Mignano,
Yes.
Councilman Milliken,
Yes.
Councilman Mullinax,
Yes.
Mayor Woolsey.
Yes, so that passes. We'll move on to committee reports. Our first committee is the Land Use Committee. Councilwoman Mignano.
I have no report.
Well, thank you. Is there a report from the Environmental and Beautification Committee?
Yes. Yes, a quick one. James and Pride had a gorilla trash pickup on April 25th. We had just the volunteers from the committee go out. We managed to remove 10 bags of litter from island roadways. We have another pickup scheduled bright and early on May 30th from 7:30 to 9:30 a.m. We're going to put supplies on the porch and for anybody who wishes to help. We're going to target Riverland Drive. When we do these pickups, we practice social distancing. So it's just a matter of picking up supplies, going out to a location, picking up litter, and then letting us know where those bags can be found so we can get them off the roadway. But that's what's going on. It's May 30th from 7:30 to 9:30 a.m. Thanks.
Any questions for Councilman Miller?
Why, this is Bowles, why is it so early?
Boy, I wish I knew. I think we have many people in our committee that would like to get to their, and I think that's probably why we're running early this time. I think it's also to beat the heat.
Okay.
Hearing no questions, no further questions, any further questions? Hearing none, thank you, Councilman Milliken. Now we go to Children's Committee. I have no report. Then we go to Public Safety Committee, Councilman Mullen.
I'd say for the neighborhood council is that we won't be meeting this month, but we do anticipate, hoping that we'll be able to meet in June when things get closer to normal. And that's all I have to say on my report.
Next, any questions for Councilman Mullinex? Thank you, Troy. So next we go to the History Committee, and the History Council did not meet last month, and I think the council members are waiting to have in-person meetings. Any questions? So let's go to the Rethink Folly Road Committee. The Rethink Folly Road Committee met. We had a online meeting. We got a report from the consultants, the tool group, on the advantages and disadvantages of hotels. It was really a bit of a preview of a memo that was later distributed to the committee, which I have shared with you all, showing the challenges and possible benefits of having a hotel on Folly Road. And I think my judgment of the report is that it would have could possibly have some challenges, but on the net, it would be a positive development. Any questions? Hearing none. Next, we go to the Drainage Committee. Councilman Mullen.
Okay. On Wednesday, May 13th, we had an online meeting of the Drainage Committee, and we spoke about issues that covered the Ocean View community, Oakcrest and Linwood, and also a couple Lighthouse and Lighthouse Point. And representatives of the town, at least all of us with the town were there, I believe, the city, we had representatives of the city and county, and some very interesting points were made. And I have followed up with Councilwoman Jackson since the meeting regarding the 622 schooner, and she said that she'll try to get out there along Matt Fountain to look at that situation, as you know, at her earliest convenience. And I would also like to ask, I meant to ask this during the part, during Mark's presentation, but I'd like to ask him to follow up with Mr. Fountain too on this if he could, at his convenience. But anyway, but yeah, everything went real well. I thought we had a real good, lively discussion, and I plan on having another meeting in August sometime within that month. Just not sure of a date at that point. That's all I have to say on that report.
Any questions for Councilman Mullinex? Hearing none, thank you so much, Troy. And now we go to the Business Development Committee, Councilman.
Thank you. We haven't been meeting either during the shutdown, but I have been speaking with the members and also recently with Ashley about furthering the directory. She had some really helpful ideas, so I hope by the next meeting to have some more concrete plan for putting together an island-wide business directory. And that is all.
Any questions for Councilman Bowles? All right, thank you very much. Let's go on to the Tree Advisory Committee. Councilman Milliken.
We had a virtual meeting on May 21st, and at that meeting, Brian Durham presented the advantages of another layer of geothink for plotting out the location of trees that we will ascertain in our tree survey of the island. He said we could easily add a layer to that program that would have trees. So it seems that would be a real good use of that program. The council also discussed the need for a presence on the town website where we could keep all things related to trees in one location. The idea would be that we could have our applications for tree removal, our tree ordinances, pictures of invasive species, planting recommendations for planting trees in close proximity to power lines or other places, how to plant trees. The council also would like to add some at-large members, and I'm bringing one to you this evening. I would like to nominate Tony Hinson as a member of the Tree Council. And I think I would need a second for that.
I'll second that. This is Councilman Molinak. Sorry.
Thank you. I guess all those in favor?
Aye. Councilwoman Mignano.
I'm in favor. Councilman Molinak.
Yes, from Bowles.
I'm in favor. Mayor?
Mayor, you're muted.
Okay. Our next meeting is scheduled for June 9th at 5:30.
Mayor, you're muted.
I don't believe that we can add members to committees that change the size of the committee in that fashion.
We can't have an ad hoc member?
And you said an at-large member. I'm not really sure what that is.
Somebody who could help flesh out our numbers so that we could do a tree survey?
Anyway, I believe that there's rules for how the sizes of the committees, but that's fine.
Okay, well, Mayor, if that's the case, I will bring next time a modification to our committee structure that would allow us, perhaps with a positive vote, to add members to the committee. Would that be in order?
What? Sure, it would, but I think the first step is actually it's passed and we will tentatively accept this as a new member. And if it turns out the rules don't allow it, then we'll have to go back and fix it. But I'm not sure. We'd have to refuse, and we can take care of it next time if there's an issue.
All right, I'll tell Tony not to celebrate yet.
All right. No, the space bar wasn't working there for me. All right, so next we have James Island Intergovernmental Council. I would say that it's getting about time to have a meeting if the meetings are quarterly. I don't know how excited I am about trying to have the whole bunch of us on a Zoom meeting. We may want to wait until we can meet in person, though, of course, it's not up to any of us. All right. But is there any questions or any comments about the Intergovernmental Council? Hearing none, that would be it for our committee reports. Let's go on to proclamations and resolutions. And so next we have resolution 2020-09, CTTC request, traffic calming at Fort Johnson and Lighthouse Boulevard. Ashley, would you explain that?
Yes, when we had Weston and Sampson engaged in doing the Schooner Road speed humps, they also looked at some improvements that could be made to the Fort Johnson and Lighthouse Boulevard intersection. some long-term, much more costly improvements, could include realigning that road. But short-term would be some speed feedback signs. And, council has already, I think, sent a resolution in support of that to DOT. DOT said they would entertain an encroachment permit for that. So this is requesting the majority of the funds, around 34,500 from TC, with a 25% match from the town of 11,500. I did include that the cost as well. As you'll see, there's some electrical work that will need to be done and conduit run in addition to the speed signs themselves.
Is there a motion in favor?
I make a motion to favor this, Councilman Bowen.
I will second that, Councilman Milliken.
Okay, any discussion?
This is Councilman Molinak. I'd like to kind of lead off on this. Yes, I think that this form of traffic comment is incredibly helpful. We had, some of you may remember, we had a temporary, something like this up temporarily on Fort Johnson, and those residents were very appreciative of it. We also had that same device earlier at the entrance of Lighthouse Point, probably about a year or so ago. And I've actually watched people, they do slow down for those things because it flashes up their speed, and they always seem to, they always, my opinion is they always assume there's a policeman in the near area. It's almost like having a virtual police officer, nearby. People tend to slow down for those signs. On top of that, a small little blue light seems to appear when that mileage sign comes up. So I think that this is very helpful. These are also, I would like in the future be able to get some of the long stretches of road, such as Stone Post and Clearview and Stiles and places such as that, because they really are a good deterrent against speeding on long stretches of road. And the one we're talking about at Fort Johnson, as you know, we had a car not to take that curve way too fast and run into a house. And then also, the very night we were debating the sign last year, another car didn't take that curve and hit a tree, and had that tree not been there, it would have hit that same house. So I know those people are very appreciative of it, and several of the people on Fort Johnson Road, between the entrance to Lighthouse Point and between Michael Drive, those residents, I've talked to many of them, they're very appreciative, of this effort. So anyway, just kind of wanted to give a little bit of background on this, because this was originally proposed last year before some of our current members of council, were there. So just wanted to give an overview of it. Thank you.
Any further discussion?
Yeah, I think it would be a good idea to evaluate the effectiveness of the device by perhaps doing a pre and post measurement of traffic speeds, if that would be possible, so that we could then perhaps justify purchasing more of these devices for other problem areas on the island. I know this particular area is really bad, and I'm really happy that Councilman Mullinax has put this forward, because it's just a terrible area. We had about 2 to 3 weeks ago, a girl got hit on a bike right there at near that curve. And fortunately she was okay, but it's yet another example of people going too fast. And we really need to control the speed of traffic on that road. Is there going to be any holdup with DOT for us to put this on a scenic byway? Is there any rules against that?
I don't think so. I did review that letter again from them in response to our request. And they said that their standard traffic manual doesn't really address these signs. If they were open to entertaining an encroachment permit. We put our temporary one up there and they made us take it down. But they have not expressed that they would be against it because it's a scenic byway.
All right.
Any further discussion? Well, hearing none, town clerk, please call the roll.
Councilman Bowles,
Yes.
Councilwoman Mignano,
Yes.
Councilman Milliken,
Yes.
Councilman Molinax,
Yes.
Mayor Woolsey.
Yes. So that passes. Let's go on to resolution 2020-10, which is CTC request for drainage improvements to Highland Avenue. Well, Ashley, would you speak?
Yes, this is the same project we discussed earlier. We would be requesting $65,000 to help towards the construction. Matching it with 25% of the cost, $32,500. We're hoping to get the other 25% match from either the City of Charleston DOT or both of them. Councilwoman Jackson has relayed to me to relay to you all tonight that she's certainly pushing for the city to help contribute a percentage. And then they would lend their support sort of as a joint application to the CTC on this project as well.
Is there a motion in favor?
So moved.
Is there a second?
Second.
I think Councilman Bowles got that first.
Oh,
All right.
okay.
Any further, any discussion? So hearing none, let's bring this to a vote. Town
Councilman
clerk, please
Bowles,
call the roll.
Yes.
Councilwoman Mignano,
Yes.
Councilman Milliken,
Yes.
Councilman Molinax,
Yes.
Mayor Woolsey.
Yes. So that passes. Now we're going to move to emergency ordinances, and we have some that are expiring. And so we will start with the ordinance regarding electronic meetings. Emergency Ordinance 3/2020, which expires May 31st. I would move that we extend that ordinance to June 18th. Is there a second?
Second.
So I would speak to that. I'm hoping that in June 18th, we will have a meeting that is largely in person, maybe similar to what we did in March, but that may not be possible. And if that is not possible, then we will be set up for an electronic meeting at that time. We'll have the rules that we have developed for electronic meeting. Any further discussion?
This is Councilwoman Mignano. So if we can meet in person, then we can still do so. This just covers us in case we have to do another electronic meeting. Is that correct?
Yes, that's correct.
Thank you.
The electronic meetings does not specify that we must meet electronically.
Okay, thanks.
Any other questions or discussion? Hearing none, would you please call the roll?
Councilman Bowles,
Yes.
Councilwoman Mignano,
Yes.
Councilman Milliken,
Yes.
Councilman Molinax,
Yes.
Mayor Woolsey.
Yeah. Okay, next we have the emergency ordinance 202/2020 pertaining to parks, hospitality, plastics, non-essential personnel, amended to expire May 21st. I mean, yes, it will expire May 21st.
This is Bowles. I would move that we extend that in line with the prior vote to June 18th.
I'll second that.
I would move to amend to strike parks and non-essential personnel.
I'll second for discussion on the amendment.
So I believe that it's appropriate to follow the what Charleston County Parks and the is doing and the city of Charleston is doing in opening our parks again. And if we extend that until the next meeting, then our parks will remain closed until June. So I believe it's time to open our parks. And then as for the non-essential personnel, I think that we hope to open town council for limited access on next Tuesday. And I believe it is desirable to give the town administrator discretion as to what employees we need to have here or not, rather than continue with the work at home order for staff through the next meeting. I believe that the town administrator has shared with you her plans going forward, and it includes that some employees on a case-by-case may work at home, but I think that it's time for that to expire.
This is Councilwoman Mignano. I have a question. So if we strike parks and non-essential personnel, then what does this mean for hospitality? And I know what it means for plastics, but what does this mean for hospitality if we extend it?
We would not be collecting hospitality tax through the next meeting, though the rest, the people the businesses that must collect the tax would still collect the tax, but they just would not have to remit it to us during the next month until June.
Okay, thank you.
Mayor, I have a concern about the playground equipment and children playing on the playground equipment. I guess I'm okay with opening the parks if people are going to go for a walk, but I am not okay with children on the playground equipment possibly picking up and transmitting this virus that's still prevalent. I think that it's dangerous to allow kids near the water fountains and near the playground equipment at this juncture of the outbreak.
Well, I agree, and Charleston County Parks and the city of Charleston, and my intention is that we will also keep those similar restrictions on our parks. So the parks would be more officially open. They are actually being utilized already in the ways that you described. We do have a troubling situation where in theory they're closed. The people who use them do so in a questionable way. And that I find that troubling. And certainly it's very challenging for us to try to have personnel there and chase people off. We really can't do that. But however, I do believe that the playground equipment should remain off limits and the water fountains, and we should keep the bathrooms closed, and which is consistent with what Charleston County and the city of Charleston are doing. And I would ask that you give our town staff, our town administrator, and public works staff, allow them to exercise the discretion and judgment to maintain this policy and change it as appropriate.
Mayor,
We're discussing the amendment to strike parks and non-essential personnel.
Mayor, would it be possible for you to add some language about the restrooms to that and the playground equipment?
Well, it would be possible. So I think that we can amend an amendment, and that's as far as we can go, but that is in order. And so if I hear you correctly, you're asking to remove the park closure, but specify as an emergency ordinance that playgrounds and bathrooms and
water fountains
remain off limits until June 18th, right? Or next meeting.
Mhm.
Is that correct? So that would be an amendment to the amendment, and that is allowed. And is there a second?
I second that. Councilman Mullinax.
Okay, so again, I would rather that you have confidence in the town administration to make these calls, but is there any further discussion? Hearing
Yes.
none, let's Councilwoman McNaught.
As far as closing off the bathrooms, I understand the bacteria aspect of that. However, when public bathrooms have been closed at other facilities, from what I've seen on news, et cetera, and even with Folly Beach, then that's going to lead to, or it has led to, people resorting to less than ideal ways to relieve themselves when they're in a public space if there is no available bathroom. So I don't want to find a whole lot of bottles of human waste around either, which has been an issue in other public areas. So is there any way that we could, I don't know, like increase sanitation or have sanitation supplies available for them, similar to how like Lowe's has in their bathrooms, so that they could self-sanitize and we could still leave the public bathrooms open?
Okay, so Councilwoman Magnano, actually, of course, all those things are possible, but we are in a question of order that we can't amend the amendment, and so we would just have to dispose of Councilman Milliken's amendment, voted up or down, and then we could consider other things at that point.
Okay.
So, any further discussion of the amendment to the emergency ordinance regarding parks will be that bathrooms, water fountains, and playground equipment are closed until June 18th. All right, is there any more discussion?
Quick question on the,
Yes.
is from the amended amendment, but so the Councilman Milliken's request about the parks was discussed. However, if we voted now, we would be allowing town staff discretion to return tomorrow. Is that right?
Yeah.
All
of what we're discussing now, if it passes, is that it would deal with the park portion of this, and we would retain park closures. No, just actually in our parks, the bathrooms, the water fountains, and the playground equipment would be closed. And we haven't spoke to the other part yet. That still hasn't.
Okay.
All right, so let's vote. And this is just, so the way this will work is that parks, the emergency ordinance closing parks is repealed, but there is a emergency ordinance closing bathrooms, playground equipment, and water fountains at the parks. Francis, would the town clerk please call?
Councilman Bowles,
Yes.
Councilwoman Mignano,
Yes.
Councilman Milliken,
You were,
yes, I'm sorry.
I could tell you.
Councilman Mullinax,
Yes.
Mayor Woolsey.
No. All right, so now we are considering the amendment that will be to remove the portion of the emergency ordinance that required all non-essential personnel to work from home. And also the now amended portion that will allow the parks to open, that will remove the closure of the parks, but retain closure of the bathrooms and water fountains and playgrounds in the parks. And so we're voting on that.
Okay. Councilman Bowles?
Well, is there any discussion? I'm sorry, I didn't mean,
Sorry.
that's what we discussed. Is there any discussion? So hearing none, could we call the roll?
Councilman Bowles?
Yes.
Councilwoman Mignano?
Yes.
Councilman Milliken?
Yes.
Councilman Mullinex?
Yes.
And Mayor Woolsey?
Yes. Okay, we've interpreted that the emergency ordinance about the burn ban is that it was lifted when the statewide ban was lifted. Any discussion about that matter? Hearing none, let's go forward to the acceptance of applications requiring public hearings. I would ask that we repeal that ordinance, remove that ordinance, and this is on the advice of council. Is there a second?
I'll second for consideration. Councilman Mullinex.
So, you know, the explanation, I believe that we all received communication from our attorney about whether this was a particularly wise way to handle the possibility of public hearings during the emergency. And so I think that the best course for us to go is to repeal this. If there's no discussion with the town.
Yeah, I'm not sure about this. It's slated to expire on the 15th of June. Is that correct?
That's what it says, yeah. It was set for 60 days.
I would like to keep it, I'm going to vote to keep it in place until June 15th. Just because we don't know what's going to happen with the virus. And I think it's better to be safe right now than to have an overinflated sense of confidence.
Well, Councilman Milliken, I don't know how to respond to that. I don't think this has anything to do with the situation with the virus. It has to do with whether it's wise to refuse to take applications. You know, I guess we could have, you know, generally the town is not, applicants do not have the right to demand public hearings of the town. When we have certain applications, they are, when we have meetings, the meetings involve public hearings. There's not any rule about when the public hearings that prohibit us from postponing a public hearing meetings. So we just really don't have that situation. And then, you know, there are concerns about telling people they can't make applications. Anyway, I think any other discussion needs to go into executive session so that you could ask the attorney to explain it in more detail what the issue was.
Yeah, I guess the question I have is whether there's any kind of a timestamp associated with the Board of Zoning Appeals. And whether or not there's any kind of time lock on public hearings that are associated with those applications. If not, then I'm okay with this.
Also, I would point out to everybody that it's temporary. I think when we're promoting public health, we have some leeway with enacting temporary provisions like this. And, you know, if anybody, I think I blanked out for a second there. You know, if anybody in the town is adversely affected by this, they haven't let me know it. So I think it's there to protect the public and also protect the people who would have to attend to these hearings. And it doesn't seem to be making anyone upset. So I don't think there's any harm in just allowing it to remain. And if somebody feels strongly about lifting it, a town resident or somebody, I would just urge them to reach out to us, and you know, maybe we could take that up.
This is Councilwoman Mignano. I feel that if we're extending our electronic meetings until the 18th, then I agree that we should just let it run let this application for public hearings run until the 15th. That way we can all be hopefully back in the game and able to function as we normally would.
I would just like to clarify, the ordinance is not, we don't have applications for public hearings. So there's
Or
applications.
requiring, sorry. I didn't mean to talk over you, I apologize.
All right, understand. So again, you know, just it's important to understand that we do not have timelines where citizens can claim the right to have public hearings. It is true that ordinarily when people make applications, it would come at the subsequent meeting of the, for example, if someone asked for a variance, applied for an action to get a variance, then that variance would be heard at the next BZA meeting. But they have no right to claim, you know, like in 30 days to have a public hearing or even a BZA meeting within a certain period of time. And that because of the emergency, I believe it is legal for us, as we did, to postpone BZA meetings. And it's, to some degree, it's up to the discretion of the chairman of the BZA whether to hold the meeting. The planning director, I think, can speak to this if she would like.
Hi, might be better to see me. Can y'all hear me?
Yes, hi, Kristen.
Hi. So, yes, when an applicant comes in for a special exception or a variance application for the BZA, the wording in our ordinance is that it would go to the next available BZA meeting. And I think it would be up to the chair of the BZA to determine when the next available meeting would be. Is that the question?
Yes, I think that's the question. Okay, so if there's do anyone have any questions of the planning director? All right, so would the town clerk please call the roll? Francis?
Quick question. The vote is to repeal this June 15 deadline. Is that accurate?
A no vote would keep it until June 15th.
Thank you.
Councilman Bowles,
No.
Councilwoman Mignano,
No.
Councilman Milliken,
No.
Councilman Mullinax,
No.
Mayor Woolsey.
Yeah. All right, so so that failed. The that ordinance will continue until June 15th. Okay, so next we go up to ordinances for second and final reading. Ordinance 2020-04. Proposed amendments to the town's James Island zoning and land use development regulations. Ordinance 153-093, Folly Road Corridor Overlay District, adding hotels and motels to prohibited use in all 5 areas of the Folly Road Overlay Corridor. Is there a motion in favor?
Point of order, Mr. Mayor, I would like to make a motion at this time. I think there are people who are now available for public comment on this. And if they are, I'd make a motion that we take a minute and let them comment.
So I think what you're doing is making a motion to amend the agenda. And
Yes, sir.
I believe that would be in order. Is there a second?
A second. Milliken, second.
Okay, and so amending the agenda, it's not really an action, but let's get but I believe that it requires 2/3 vote. But anyway, let's go ahead and vote on this motion.
Councilman Bowles,
Yes.
Councilwoman Mignon,
Yes.
Councilman Milliken,
Yes.
Councilman Mullinax,
Yes.
Mayor Woolsey.
Yes. And so now we will take public comment on the amendments to the zoning and land use development ordinance.
Okay, because of the setup, I'm not sure what the four folks are here to speak about. So I'm just going to ask each one in the order that they came into the meeting. This one, let's see. Mr. and Mrs. Walker, I have unmuted you. If you can unmute yourself, if you wish to address council. All right, I'm going to skip Mr. and Mrs. Walker. Maybe he or she is looking into how to do that. They have been allowed to speak, but will need to unmute their mic. The next person I have is Mr. John Litton. Mr. Litton, can you hear me?
Can you hear me?
Yes.
Great. And that was Mr. and Mrs. Walker is Trenum Walker, my partner. So I think my comments can go for both of us. So we represent the owners of 719 Folly Road, David Bessinger and Stephanie Williams, the Bessinger family. And we submitted written comments to council, and I know everyone has had an opportunity to read those, and there have been some emails about them. And I wouldn't want to spend any of the precious time tonight rehashing those, but would like to just make a few points. And David, I believe, is going to speak about the property and his family and their history on James Island. But there are basically two things that I'd like to make sure is on everyone's mind. One is that voting in favor of a ban in this district of hotels does not help the town control development. And voting in favor instead, coming back and voting for the special exception process that was recommended by the Planning Commission, gives the town tremendous control over how the property is developed as a hotel. And that allows the town to really play an active role in the way the hotel would look, the size, the traffic issues, if there are any, stormwater. And it is a great way for the town to have an active role in planning rather than saying no outright to something that could have tremendous benefits, financial and otherwise. The second point briefly that I want to make is if anybody feels like there are unanswered questions about whether a hotel benefit the town and how it would benefit the town on this property, then I would encourage you to ask or vote for a deferral of this item and spend the time to engage additionally with the owners and get all questions answered before simply saying no. Because of the pending ordinance doctrine, a deferral would not allow anyone to go out and build a hotel or submit a plan for a hotel. Any ordinance that was ultimately passed would relate back to the first time this was on an agenda. So those are my comments. I believe David Bessinger and perhaps Stephanie are on the line, and thank you for your time.
Thank you.
Okay, next, I have someone, the phone number 843-509, 5009. Hello? Can you?
Thank you. This is Trenum Walker. I'm John Litton's partner. I don't have anything to add over what John said. This has been a long meeting. We had hoped to have both David Bessinger and Stephanie Williams speak. I think that David was unable to attend beyond the first 30 minutes. So if Stephanie is available, she is going to speak. She is going to give you as council members a bit of background that we as lawyers didn't know about and couldn't communicate in our letter. We just asked that you approach this guardedly. The total elimination, and as my partner John said, at least not eliminated outright, and go along with the Planning Commission recommendation. Thank you.
Okay, Miss Williams?
Yes. Can you hear me?
Yes, ma'am.
Hi, this is Stephanie Bessinger Williams. How are you?
Thank you.
Yeah, I just want to just speak a little bit on behalf of our property and the property that my father left us. That parcel of land on Folly Road he has had for, I want to say, about 22 to 23 years, maybe 25 years. My father, after he came back from World War II, moved to Charleston and opened his restaurant on Savannah Highway. And we moved to James Island, I want to say when I was probably around 5, so probably around 1964. And we have been residents on James Island, since then. My father passed away about 6 years ago, and my mom moved off of James Island probably about 5 years ago. So we have been very, very involved in the city. And he has also had his barbecue restaurants, which I'm sure y'all are familiar with, Melvin's, which is on James Island, which has been there since 1980. And then he has one in Mount Pleasant. So my father has always been a big advocate of James Island. He's loved it. He's put a lot of his time and money and work ethic into being a part of that island. And just, buying this property was something that he wanted to invest in and to leave to us one day when he passed away. So we would like to be able to, use that and get the most profit from it as we try to sell it. We do have it under contract right now, as I'm sure y'all are very aware of. And we were told about a year ago that we could put a hotel there. So we want to beautify the street. And I think a hotel would bring a lot of beauty to the street. That's been a street that I have run up and down my whole life, going to Folly Beach, as young kids. So, we would just like to see the property, used for the best for the town. And I think that a hotel would add tremendous value to the town. I think it would be like one of the things that would start making that road just be a little bit more presentable. The building we have right now on that land is, you know, old and is not very attractive. So we would like to be able to sell it and make something, you know, a little bit more attractive on that street for other people. We think the revenue would be great for the town. You know, we've been paying taxes on James Island for many, many years with Melvin's being there and our corporate office being there. So we would just like for y'all just to, you know, give us this opportunity to move forward with this and be able to, you know, put the hotel there. I think my dad would greatly appreciate, I mean, he's not here, but I think that would make him very proud to know that that property that he, you know, sunk a lot of money into would be, you know, that something neat and pretty would be put there.
All right. Well, thank you very much, Ms. Williams.
And my brother, he couldn't talk, but I'm sure, you know, he just didn't have the time to stay on the Zoom that long.
Do we have anybody else, Ashley, waiting to talk?
No, sir.
All right, well, then we will move forward. Is there a motion in favor? Did I miss that? Did we already make a motion in favor in second?
I don't
I don't believe so, sir.
All right, okay. So is there a motion in favor?
So moved.
Is there a second?
Second.
So now discussion.
Yeah, I just want to say I support the ban on hotels and motels on Folly Road for 3 reasons. We don't have the infrastructure to support additional traffic. Additional signals or curb cuts will make a bad situation a lot worse. Bad traffic situations create safety issues, and we're trying to make Folly Road safer for bikes, pedestrians, cars. Sewage infrastructure is lagging, and additional improvements will cost taxpayers. Aesthetics are very important, and it's likely that any hotel or motel construction will require additional variances so they may build above the 35-foot height limit. I don't want to see Folly Road populated with tall buildings that obscure our view of the marshes. I've received 9 letters in support of hotels and or property owner rights. I've received over 90 letters opposing hotels. According to our town code in chapter 153 of the zoning and land development regulations, we need to protect the health, safety, and general welfare of existing and future residents of the town. And I have a really good letter here from the South Carolina Environmental Law Project. Very good letter. And I also have a letter from the Preservation Society of Charleston that are opposed to hotels. And the South Carolina Environmental Law Project cites our own Zeldar, chapter 153, and says regulating the density and distribution of populations and the uses of buildings, structures, and land for trade, industry, residence, recreation, agriculture, forestry, conservation, airports, and approaches thereto, water supply, sanitation, protection against floods, public activities, and other purposes. I find this within our purview, and I can find a lot of reasons to support why hotels and motels really can't be supported with our present infrastructure. Maybe when our infrastructure catches up and measures are implemented that could support this usage, we can revisit the land use plan and change it to allow hotels and motels. But at this point, I'm going to sustain my vote to ban hotels and motels.
All right, any further discussion?
Very briefly, this is Councilman Bowles. And I appreciate Councilman's speaking points. As a public representative, I feel I'm kind of bound to vote the way that the residents of the town asked me to vote. And I would echo the numbers that Councilman Milliken put forth. To Miss Williams and the Bessinger family, I would offer that sometimes, you know, when something doesn't work out the way that you want it to, it can sometimes be a blessing, and something better comes along. James Island is a place that most people move to because there's not a lot of commercial activity. It's something that people look for. And but all those points aside, all those philosophies or, you know, speaking points, to me, it's always, voting is always a matter of numbers. And it appears that the overwhelming number of town residents are in favor of this ban on hotels. And it's as simple as that. And thanks for listening.
Any further discussion? So I would move that we amend the ordinance to make hotels a special exception in the commercial core only. That dies for lack of a second. I move that we defer consideration of this ordinance. Is there? So that dies for lack of a second. So we continue to discuss the proposed ordinance. Is there any further discussion? So I will respond to Councilman Milliken's statements. Councilman Milliken read language from the Southern Environmental Group, and it just basically said that municipalities have the authority to impose zoning, and that's not a dispute. The question is whether a ban on hotels in the town's commercial district is appropriate. Councilman Milliken said that we don't have the sewer infrastructure and that to put a hotel would require the taxpayers to pay extra for this sewer infrastructure. We heard at the last meeting that Councilman Menano actually checked with the James Island Public Service District, and they have more than adequate sewer infrastructure for a hotel, 80-room hotel, modest-sized hotel. So that is certainly false that we do not have sufficient sewer infrastructure, or that any added sewer infrastructure would be required to put in a hotel. And this claim, and when I read these emails, many of whom I recognize as not living in the town. Some I knew live on James Island, but live in the city or the unincorporated area. Some are not so clearly identifiable, that they might not live on James Island at all, but rather are joining together with other who they feel are fellow environmentalists to fight hotels based upon claims that we saw repeated over and over, that there's not enough sewer infrastructure. And this lack of sewer infrastructure is going to result in pollution of our creeks. And that's not correct. Not only do we have the adequate sewer infrastructure for a hotel, the problem of sanitary sewer overflows due to stormwater infiltration into our sewer system is important, but it is not caused by inadequate sewer infrastructure. It is caused by breaks in that sewer infrastructure, and those will not be solved one way or the other by hotel. The real problem of pollution generated in our commercial core is that it was developed many years ago, including the buildings currently on the Bessinger property, but up and down Folly Road. It was developed at a time when there was no requirements to retain stormwater on properties. One reason why it's so important to redevelop the properties on Folly Road to replace what are now a bunch of old aging strip malls with new buildings is that those new buildings, that redevelopment, will have modern stormwater restrictions. And that will not only control flooding, flood water getting on the road or neighboring houses, but it will also, those floodwaters will no longer flow directly into our creeks. Now, I'm not sure that our commercial district is the major source of pollution in James Island Creek. I think it may be actually our residential neighborhoods that are the source of the problem, and that aging septic tanks, we were not sure, but the notion, that people are told on social media that a hotel is going to cause pollution of James Island Creek when there is no grounds for that. And then we receive 90 emails, 80 emails, 50 emails, 100 emails that repeat that claim over and over when we know it is false. We cannot allow that to influence our decisions. We need to make decisions for the good of this town. And it is important that we have a strong commercial district on Folly Road. That is the town's commercial district. As for traffic, the hotels, contrary to what some people may think, are not major traffic drivers. That is one of the things we found out from the Tool Group when they did the work for Rethink Folly Road. And so all of the arguments that I've seen from in these emails criticizing the hotels, that fortunately they gave us reasons, but they're reasons that are not valid. And then finally, I just, again, will repeat as I did at the last meeting, 90, well, there are over 10,000 voters in the town of James Island. And as I said, some of those 90 people don't even live in the town of James Island. And now we have had a handful, we've had a handful of organized effort to allow hotels, basically the property owners on Folly Road, but we did not get a random sample of what the people of James Island felt. What we found, we had a group that organized against hotels. They spread misinformation, and they asked those people to share that, to say that they're against hotels and share that misinformation back with us. We got those emails. We know it's misinformation, and I think it's the wrong thing to do to vote for something based on what we know is false. Any further discussion?
Yes, this is Councilwoman Mignano. I hear what you're saying, Mayor. However, I would like to put this out there. We still have property that's being developed for residential area. And I know that I spoke about the sewage maximum capacity, et cetera, but to add the hotel, a hotel that's probably 100 rooms is definitely going to tax that. And even if they put in new pipes, they're still running that sewage through our old pipes that break. So that would increase the load on those pipes that are already fragile as it is. I have issues, and a lot of the people that I spoke to and that spoke to me were concerned about the impervious surfaces, and they don't. The people that talk to me do not want a hotel. And even though the traffic study said that it would impact the peak hour traffic by less than 2%, that doesn't include the rest of the day or night. If there are 100 rooms, that's 100 more cars on Folly Road at whatever time. And I agree with Councilman Bowles that, this may be a blessing in disguise for the Bessinger family, but we have to listen to the people who have reached out to us. That's my job, is to be their voice. And overwhelmingly, I have heard that it is not desired at this time. Once the structure if the infrastructure is more in place, then we can definitely revisit. But as of now, it just doesn't seem that it is something that the community of James Island wants at this particular moment. Thank you.
All right, any further discussion?
Very briefly, if nobody else is going to go, this is Bowles. Another thing I would point out is that, again, for me, this is numbers based. I know I've said that already. I think Ms. Williams is still on the Zoom meeting, so I hope she's listening. And anyone else, any other individuals who feel like it's like Joe Walters, who's come to several of the meetings and spoken on behalf of commercial property owners, I would encourage all of them to lobby the residents of the town, and just it really comes down to what the residents of the town are asking for. And Mayor, I hear what you're saying about some of the emails may have come from people who are not town residents. That might be true, but when you put everything on a balancing scale, it just weighs heavily in favor of this ban right now. So again, if anyone out there is listening that feels like it's really important to them and that it really would be a benefit to the town, then I encourage you to try to change people's minds. And then when they come to me, I will listen to them about it. And that's all. Thanks.
All right, any further discussion? Hearing none, would the town clerk please call the roll?
Councilman Bowles,
Yes.
Councilwoman Mignano,
Yes.
Councilman Milliken,
Yes.
Councilman Mullinax,
Yes.
Mayor Woolsey.
No. So next we'll go to ordinance 2020-05, which is adoption of supplemental stormwater design manual standards. Is there a motion in favor?
So moved.
Is there a second?
I second.
All right, any discussion?
Yes, I have one point to make about this, and it's one that came up when we had the first reading on this. It has to do with an editorial point, the last paragraph of page 4, where it says the buffer may overlay other vegetated buffers and may contain stormwater features. I believe we agreed that it would be a good idea to say must in that paragraph. And I think that's in the minutes that way as well. So it's a change that still needs to happen in this final draft of this document.
I'm afraid I don't remember. Did the minutes reflect that we made an amendment to change it from may to must? Should check on that.
Yeah, there were some amendments, editorial amendments, Councilman Milliken made, and Megan made those changes, and the edited version was included. And I thought all the edits had been made, so I'm not exactly sure.
So Councilman Milliken,
Yeah, it's on page 8 of the minutes. Oh, I'm sorry. It's on page 8 of the minutes, and may to must is there about halfway down. The citation of this in the minutes that we passed this evening.
I think the safest way to do this, it doesn't seem clear to me that we actually voted to change may to must. Why don't you make a motion right now to make that amendment?
Okay, I'm going to say that I would like to change the word on page 4 of the stormwater agreement, change where we're talking about buffers, to change the word may to must.
There's a second.
I second.
All right. Any discussion of changing may to must in this context?
This is Bowles. Councilman Milliken, can you read the whole sentence for me, please?
Yeah, I've got to go back here. It presently reads on page 4, the buffer may overlay other vegetated buffers and may contain stormwater features designated to manage stormwater generated by the fill slope.
So you want to change second May or the first May?
Yeah, I want to say must contain stormwater features designed to manage stormwater generated by the fill slope.
Got it. Thanks.
All right.
I believe that the explanation that the last meeting, you made a amendment to change to remove where practical, and that passed, but I don't believe this passed. And I think one concern I have is that what the point is that in this area where the slope is developed, it's not that it only can have that slope. It can have plants and shrubs and which would include areas where businesses might be required to have plants and shrubs for other reasons, for ornamentation but also that could be located there, swales or other things to help with stormwater, but they wouldn't necessarily require swales depending on the situation. That we're just requiring that they have a mild slope coming away from the building, and the purpose of this section is that it's not that there's this sloped area is in addition to any other requirements, and that other things can be included in the sloped area, including swales. And when you say must, unless we only mean you have to put grass or bushes on it, I think it's unclear. I don't think it helps.
This is council.
Yes.
Oh, sorry. Go ahead, Mayor. I didn't mean to cut you off.
No, go ahead, Councilman McDonald.
So I'm looking.
Councilwoman.
Either way is fine. I answer to both. I am looking at the minutes, and it says that Councilman Milliken, pertaining to buffers, to change the word may to must. And Weston and Sampson had no problems with the corrections being offered. So the way that I'm reading this, it says that the buffer may overlay other vegetated buffers and must contain stormwater features designed to manage stormwater generated by the fill slope. So I think that must sounds reasonable because we're requiring some sort of stormwater management that, generated by the fill slope. So I guess I'm not understanding what you're saying, because that's not how I'm reading it.
Mm-hmm.
Well, let's go. I think we could bring this to a vote, and my recollection is that the way they explained it is that they were just saying that in this area where the slope has occurred, certain other required things may be included. And that might be buffers that are required for other reasons, vegetative buffers that are required for other reasons. And then also things that would further control stormwater, such as swales. And so this would be like in the area of the downward slope, there would be a area that would catch water and direct it in a certain way, or rain garden, or, you know, something else. That was my understanding. But in any case, if this is an issue going forward, we can clarify it later.
And I will say,
So
I'm sorry, she was on the call earlier, but she is no longer here.
So let's go ahead and bring this amendment to the vote. And would the clerk call the roll, unless there's further discussion? So would the clerk call?
Councilman Bowles,
Yes.
Councilwoman Mignano,
Yes.
Councilman Milliken,
Yes.
Councilman Mullinax,
Yes.
Mayor Woolsey.
No. All right, so now we go with the ordinance as amended. Is there any further discussion? Hearing none, would the town clerk please call the roll, Fran?
Councilman Bowles,
Yes.
Councilwoman Mignano,
Yes.
Councilman Milliken,
Yes.
Councilman Mullinax,
Yes.
Mayor Woolsey.
Yes. Okay, so now we're finished with our second reading. Now ordinance is up for first reading. We have ordinance 2020, a draft annual budget for next fiscal year. Would you like to speak to that, Ashley?
Yes. So we did, as you can see, amend the budget. Since you all first saw it presented to you at draft. So originally, you know, we had projected our revenues up about 17%, an overall increase of 13%. However, some of our major revenues that are affected are going to be a decrease in sales tax, as well as we will likely see a decrease in other things such as business licensing, brokers and insurance tax. Most notably, they'll be in the hospitality tax. So we have, you know, gone through and made some reductions accordingly. So I sort of sent you all an overview of those changes. I guess instead of belaboring it, if you just have any questions for me in particular.
Well, let's see if we can get a motion in a second, and we'll go into discussion and have further questions at that point. So is there a motion in favor of adopting the budget?
So moved.
Is there a second?
Second.
Okay, so now discussion or further questions for Ashley.
I have some budget amendments that I'd like to make.
Okay, so do we have those in writing?
I could talk them to you.
Okay, that's okay.
All right. I think
that they were written down.
Yeah, we did write them down earlier. Ashley, do you have a copy of the amendments?
I do. I can email those out to everyone right now.
Okay. And meanwhile, I'll just speak to why I'm asking for the amendments. We have a proposed budget where a quarter of our $4 million municipal budget goes towards tax relief for the PSD. Our local municipalities are making a lot of revisions to their budgets, as we are right now. Nobody expected the decrease in sales to go on in their budgets and everything else. And I think really what we need to do is probably consider tightening our belt to some of these issues. I'm very concerned about the transfer of $527,620 from our reserve fund. I think we really kind of need to be careful with that fund because we're not all the way out of this COVID epidemic, and we are on the threshold of what might be a very intense hurricane season. So what I'm suggesting is a way to save some money in our reserve fund for the rainy days ahead. And I've come up with some ways to do this, thanks to Ashley for straightening me out on a couple of these things. But the idea here was to come up with a way to save a little bit of money in our reserve fund. And what we did was come up with a list that includes the following. And I can enumerate these if you would like, if that's easier, or you could look at the email. I'm going to enumerate them on the record so those watching can hear. But for legal services under administration, I wanted to reduce that by $10,000. Under administration, again, salaries, reduce it by $17,189 and not replace a retirement that's happening right now. Under general operations, salaries, reduced by $15,840, public works intern, not hire them. Under public works, reduce tree care and maintenance by $10,000. Under public works groundskeeping, reduce that by $9,000. Under community services, reduce repair care by $10,000. Under community services history council, reduce that by $3,500. Under community services tree council, reduce that by $5,000. Under facilities and equipment, street lights, reduced by $5,000. We usually have that left in the budget later. Ashley had the good idea to move money from our capital improvement plan that was slated for park improvements at Brantley Park and use the hospitality tax fund for that. Hopefully we'll be getting money in our hospitality tax fund if things start up again. And then also to increase the transfer in from the unencumbered fund balance by $25,679. So all of these changes add up to about $157,620. And they reduce the transfer in from the reserve fund from $527,620 to $300,000 to $370,000. All right.
So I take that as a motion to make these amendments to the draft budget. Is there a second? All right, any discussion of this amendment?
Wait, I second. Was there already a second and I missed it?
Yes. Was it Councilman Mullinax seconded?
Okay, cool.
Oh, that's been Councilman Bowles.
Oh, Councilman Bowles seconded? Thank you. Any discussion? Oh, so Councilman Mullinax, you wanted to speak to this?
Oh, no. I wasn't sure if Councilman Bowles had seconded or not, if he was still waiting for a second. And I said if he hadn't, I would have seconded it for discussion. No, I'm sorry.
I think we're good.
Okay.
And and Mayor, I think this is a start. You know, I mean, ideally, I'd like to have more money in our reserve fund. So if others have creative ideas of doing that, that would be wonderful. I'm very worried about depleting or minimizing our reserve fund here.
Well, I think that I think all of these changes are reasonable, and so I support them. I do believe that it is appropriate to use the reserve for temporary decreases in revenues. That is one of the key reasons for a reserve. Extraordinary expenditures would be a reason, but a temporary reduction in revenues would also be a good reason. And so that is why staff and I proposed reducing our reserve fund some. And then in future years, and you know, the other side of this coin is as we go forward in time, you know, the following fiscal year, we're going to need to build that back up, basically pay that back up and increase it again. So, the purpose of having reserve funds is to cover unusual calamities. And sometimes those calamities take the form of needing more expenditure, and other times they take the form of a loss of revenue. But I think that all of these economies are very reasonable and wise, and it's, using as little as possible, using less from the reserve fund is a good idea. Any further discussion about Councilman Milliken's amendment? Really amendment. Well, hearing none, then would Town Clerk please call the roll?
Councilman Bowles,
Yes.
Councilwoman Mignano,
Yes.
Councilman Milliken,
Yes.
Councilman Mullinex,
Yes.
Mayor Woolsey.
So yes. Any further discussion of the budget as amended?
This is Councilwoman Mignano. I have some questions about specific budget items, but I know this meeting has been going on for quite a while. So I'll try and be brief. Unless we're going to be having a budget workshop meeting anytime soon, where I could address these in a different way instead of keeping everybody on this meeting for forever.
The it will all come up, for second and final reading. There'll be a public hearing and second and final reading at the June meeting. Of course, you can ask the town administrator questions about any of these budget items at any time before then, and then we can address them. And for the most part, we can make changes in the budget at that June meeting.
All right, well then, based on the number of questions that I have, I'm going to state that I will email all of these to Ashley and the rest of town council and you, Mayor, and then we can discuss them in June.
I understand. Any other discussion?
Yes, I just want to thank Ashley for her patience and working out some of these details about the budget.
You're welcome.
All right, anything else? Okay, hearing none, would the town clerk please call the roll? Francis?
Councilman Bowles,
Yes.
Councilwoman Mignano,
Yes.
Councilman Milliken,
Yes.
Councilman Mullinex,
Yes.
Mayor Woolsey.
Yes. All right, next we will go to new business, and
Mayor, you're muted.
the next item on the agenda, thank you. The next item on the agenda is Dominion tree trimming. I believe Councilwoman Mignano asked to put this under new business. Would you like to speak to that?
Yes, this is Councilwoman Mignano. We've heard quite a few complaints regarding tree trimming. I was hoping that perhaps we could be more proactive. I know that we've been trying to train the Lewis Tree Service Company. One example in particular was a magnolia that was pretty much cut all the way up the side. So I was hoping that we could discuss some better options so that instead of going back and saying, oh, this was done improperly, that we could cut it off at the pass. No pun intended. Ashley, what do you think about that? Could we, does the arborist need to be there every time, or is that a huge expense on the town?
I mean, I would say the town is being proactive. We've been getting the bad guy a lot when it's not us doing the trimming. It is expensive. So we've spent, and was looking at it a little today. We've spent about $22,000 since December on our arborist. And he's not there all the time. And so, you know, if you think about having, you know, do have multiple crews here at a time. So yes, I mean, it would be more expensive. And on top of that, I feel like, you know, just from what I've learned since we started doing this in December, it's, you know, I don't feel like the town or any other jurisdiction for that matter should be doing Dominion's job for them. You know, they're the ones that should be monitoring Lewis, and, you know, Lewis should have trimmers out there that are trained. You know, I've spoken with the city of Charleston and their arborist, and, you know, he has the same complaints that their, you know, some crews are better than others. You know, some other things that we necessarily can't control, such as the hydraulic chainsaw they have to use. I mean, amidst the power lines is the worst tree trimming tool there is. And the fact that as much as we advertise and tell people, and as much as Dominion even, you know, tries to advertise, and we have these workshops here at Town Hall, letting people know, you know, this is when they're going to be coming. People still won't call us until Dominion's right there in their front yard trimming. And then usually by then it's too late. So, you know, there's a lot of factors at play here, and I wish I knew the answer.
So, one last question. Perhaps we could reach, I don't know, there's got to be a better way for this to happen. So Dominion is there any way that we as a town or as a community, and maybe even the county, reach out to Dominion and strongly suggest that they do better training of their crews, especially since they're dealing with so many grand trees here on James Island, and it's hard to, you know, you can't glue a branch back on once you've cut it off. And I understand, you know, we're trying to underground some power lines, but in the meantime, we have to protect the trees as well, and not make them more vulnerable during storm events based on bad cuts and leave them open to disease. So is there any way that we could, you know, possibly reach out to Dominion and ask for them to do better training or better vetting with their tree crews?
So, you know, we've notified Dominion that we believe that they are in breach of their agreement with the town and are currently in negotiation with them.
Okay, and then how does that roll forward? So we wait to hear from them, or it's a back and forth, Mayor?
I suppose back and forth is the most accurate way to describe the situation at this time, and also probably something that we would need to discuss in executive session.
Okay, I understand. Thank you.
And I would also just say, you know, I have heard that the city of Charleston is interested in amending their tree protection agreement, you know, to address some of these deficiencies that they found. And so, you know, I think that would be some further discussion that, you know, you all could have with those elected officials, and maybe try to be in sync on some of those items.
Okay, thank you. So it sounds to me like we need to either discuss this in executive session or reach out to the city and their elected officials and see what they're doing with their tree protection, so that we can mirror that and then maybe present a united front when discussing things with Dominion until we are able to bury our power lines, which I'm sure is going to be a very lengthy and expensive process. Is that correct, Ashley?
It is a very lengthy and a very expensive process, yes.
Thank you.
Any further discussion on the Dominion tree trimming issue? All right, hearing none, we'll go to neighbor sidewalk. I believe that Councilwoman Magnano put that on the agenda as well. Would you like to speak to that?
Yes, if Bo is still here, I would like to have his opinion on this. I saw that he sent me an email. It's my understanding that the contractor for the townhomes that were built there on Neighbors Drive were required by City of Charleston to build a sidewalk, and most of that sidewalk is inside of that subdivision, and it doesn't help any of the other neighbors, the citizens who live on Neighbors Drive at all. And I was hoping that we could come up with some sort of plan to get them to build that section of sidewalk so that it can be used by the general community, and perhaps encourage them to be good neighbors.
Yes, I believe I responded to your email with my understanding at the time.
Well, could you just recap that?
Regarding jurisdiction, if you allow me just one moment, let me mute something in the background so you can hear me a little bit better.
Sure.
Okay, I apologize. I think I responded, as I recollect my email, that the development is in the city and that the road is a city road and that the right-of-way is a city right-of-way, but that I hadn't actually gone to the deeds and the plats to confirm that was so, but that was my belief, that the area within the city being outside our jurisdiction does not give us the opportunity to insist on anything in that regard, unless we could convince the city to transfer their interest to us, if that's what you wanted to do. So I think the basic thrust of my email was that if it's not within our jurisdiction, I'm at a loss to know exactly what to do with it.
I'm a little confused about it myself, but I feel the gist of what I was wanting to address is the fact that Pulte was supposed to build a sidewalk, and I know it's been discussed between Mrs. Woolsey and a gentleman from the city of Charleston at, I think, one of the intergovernmental meetings, if I'm not mistaken, and City of Charleston said that yes, Pulte was going to build a sidewalk, and then somehow they managed not to. And because this impacts our town citizens, I was hoping that perhaps we could collaborate with a city official of Charleston to address this and perhaps get this resolved.
Well, on behalf of the town, I'd be glad to collaborate with the city. But from what you described, it sounds like an issue between getting the city to enforce what Pulte had its duty to do to them. They didn't have any duty to us, but I'm really not familiar with the details of the Pulte/city agreement. That clearly sounds like something that's within the city's ability to enforce, but beyond our ability to enforce since we weren't a party to the agreement.
So there's nothing that you could do, say, hey, we are interested in getting this section of sidewalk, because I don't want the town of James Island to have to pay for that section of sidewalk if it's the developer's responsibility. So could you, who
we've discussed,
reach out?
I've discussed this with Carol Jackson, and Carol has proposed that the town and the city work together to have a TST or CTC proposal to put sidewalks on Neighbors Drive and Regatta, to basically combine the Regatta project with the Neighbors project. So we run the sidewalk from the current terminus of the sidewalk at Grand Concourse, or I guess Stillwater, and run it all the way down to the shopping center. And that she's well aware of the issues with the development, And that, she definitely would have been interested in forcing the developers to retroactively put the sidewalk in there. But, the city staff explained to her that it's like too late. So there was a time in this project when the developer would have been required to put a sidewalk along Neighbors Drive, that would be possible and plausible that would be a requirement. However, it is not always actually required. Yes, they have to have sidewalks in new neighborhoods, but did they have to put a sidewalk along Neighbors Drive? And it was determined by the staff members of that time that no, they did not. If they had been required to do so, I'm sure they would have, but they weren't required to do so. And so now it would involve the city saying, well, we changed our mind, and yes, you really are required to do so. That's what I think. But maybe that's just my understanding from Councilwoman Jackson. Councilwoman Jackson, is like, she thought it was just horrific that they did not put this in there. I don't believe I think it was actually these decisions were made before she was elected, and that and to rectify the situation, she wants to work with the town to get a TST grant, put sidewalks on the whole thing. And, we are working in that direction. Now, maybe as we work towards this sidewalk project and, getting the developer at this late date to make some contribution would be possible. I think that's something we should consider bringing forward.
I agree with you. I would love to see if perhaps you, Mayor, could write a letter to or with the city of Charleston, asking Pulte to contribute to an external sidewalk to increase the livability of the neighborhood that they built, because there are ditches there. There's no place for people to walk unless they're right on the street. It's a dangerous street. And the sidewalk that they built is closed with a locked gate. So, and with a private road sign in the front. So is that something that you could do, sir?
I think as we move forward with our regatta project that, we are going to move towards design, that contacting Pulte and seeing if they would contribute. And I think really the time to get them to contribute would be more construction, but that would be something that we can do.
Thank you. I look forward to your help in that.
Further discussion of the Neighbors Road sidewalk. Pulte. All right. Hearing none, let's go to Fort Johnson Road and Honey Hill Road. I believe Councilwoman Magnano put that on the agenda.
Yes, I did. The SCDOT, when I spoke to Arnold Blanding, I believe his name is, and Mark Johnson and you, Mayor, there's a very bad patch right in front of the park, right on Fort Johnson, right at Honey Hill and Fort Johnson intersection, that has been redone over and over and over again. I understand we've had the pandemic, but that Fort Johnson Road was told to me by SCDOT that they were going to be repaving it in March, and now it's May. And I want to stridently urge them to please at least address this very rough pothole feeling kind of patch, or at least a time frame on when they're going to start with Fort Johnson Road. I feel sometimes it feels frustrating because SCDOT says, oh, we got the information, it's on our list, but they never say when or what when they're going to take care of things. It seems it's a very lengthy process, and I know a lot of citizens are wanting this to be addressed.
I want to respond a bit to this. I think SCDOT position on these things would be like they don't work for the town. And that's something that members of council need to keep in mind. Now, they have in the last 5 years or so been more responsive to state representatives than they had been in the past. Years ago, we've had situations where I at least talked to state representatives about trying to get DOT to do something, and they said, well, DOT doesn't listen to us either. But after the major flood in 2015, is that right? I think 2015, that seemed to change, that they, that the liaisons to the legislators are more effective. And so I would suggest members of council who have major concerns with timelines about what SCDOT is doing, rather than have our staff send an email to them or call them and say, when are you gonna get this done? And they will, basically tell them when we get to it, because, they don't work for us. They're not our contractors. They're just as a courtesy listening to us, that the way to get things done, and generally when I can't get, if something is important and it's not getting done, what I do is I reach out to Senator Sin, or I used to reach out to Representative McCoy. We have a vacancy in that position, but hopefully that will soon be filled. Or perhaps there's a few areas in the town in Representative Stavronakis's, and of course a substantial portion of the town in Senator Campson, and I talk to our state representatives and bring this to their attention. And I think that is the best way to pursue this when you have a complaint about DOT.
Okay, and I'm not asking SCDOT to answer to us as the town, quote unquote, of James Island. I'm asking as a representative of citizens who drive these SCDOT roads, and so that's why I'm doing this. But yes, I'm more than happy to reach out to state representatives. I think that perhaps we as local representatives should be reaching out to them too, because we are not the voice of ours. We are not our own voice. We are the people's voice. We are the residents' voices.
Well, I feel like maybe this is not correct, but I guess I've always felt that our state representatives are inclined to listen to local representatives, especially because they recognize that you are also represent large groups of people. So I think it's entirely appropriate to bring things that you find troubling to the attention of these state representatives.
Okay.
And thank you.
So well then early next week, maybe I can meet with you and Mark Johnson and Ashley, and we can talk about this further instead of making everybody hang on the Zoom meeting for forever and a day. Because I know
that'll be fine.
It's 10 o'clock.
The next item on the agenda is, I believe, Dimitri Park. I still call it Sunrise Park.
Me too.
I believe that was put on the agenda by Councilwoman Mignon.
So I think this may have already been addressed, because if we're opening our parks and City of Charleston was waiting for Folly Beach to be opened to open this park on James Island, is that accurate? Because I have a lot of people ask me when this is going to be open for the public to use.
I believe Dimitri Park is open.
Okay, great. Well, then it's a non-issue and we can move on.
So next item on the agenda is executive session. Unless there's a call to go in executive session, let's move to announcements and closing comments. Do we have any announcements or closing comments? Hearing none, the meeting is adjourned. Thank you.
Thank you.